With the explosion of the internet, video editing is in our lives more than we realize. And with YouTuber or filmmaker being the top job kids want today, the demand for editors will only escalate. Editing now is like what coding was during the dot-com era. And just like everyone needed a website, soon everyone will need an editor.
And that's where we come in. This is Hayden-Hillier Smith. He is known for editing for Logan Paul, Mr. Beast, and he won the 2020 Streamy for editing.
And this is Jordan Orme. He is known for making music videos and commercials for Justin Bieber, Post Malone, Nike, and Google.
We're so obsessed with editing that when we're not cutting some of your favorite videos on YouTube, we're pouring over films, TV, and videos frame by frame on our own channels. So we're teaming up to create the podcast that we wish we had in film school.
The Editing Podcast, a show where we delve into the creative minds behind the best YouTube videos, shows, and movies to gain insight about the art of film editing.
In this very first episode, we're going to talk about how to get clients like Justin Bieber.
Through some DMs, got into that small network of music video creators.
Why throwing a Dalek at a Tardis led to me working with one of the biggest creators ever.
And that was actually the first viral video I ever made.
And how the movie Inside Out gave men permission to cry.
And suddenly my face starts tickling. I'm like, what is this?
And we also talk about murdering your darlings, which is why I've already cut out half of Jordan's lines.
Wait, what?
I've noticed where my knowledge has hit a wall, and I'm wanting to find where I can learn more. We can niche down, we have our knowledge, but that's not it. That's not be all and end all. We are the experts in our field, but there is knowledge that we severely lack in. Someone else has had a completely different creative experience than us. Someone else has a completely different story to where they've led up to today. If they're able to share their stories, they're able to talk about what it is in their life and their stories and their creative philosophies, that's going to help us and everyone else who listens, that they can then also discover what they want to be as editors, or they've probably been going down a path and they go, actually, I want to try out this path because this guest gave me some really interesting insight. I want to try this out. And then you will always be learning. You will never, ever know enough. And you just got to keep on learning, keep on asking questions, maintain curiosity, and never assume we know everything. The moment we start talking about as if we know everything, we need to cancel this podcast right away.
Yeah, absolutely. Turn it off.
I've sort of niched down a little bit. Like, I'm mostly a web content creator. Like, I do predominantly YouTube and TikTok content. If you put a short film in front of me, I'll do it terribly. If you put a music video in front of me, I'll do it terribly. I've also dabbled on the idea of what happens if I try looking into VFX work? What happens if I actually try to expand probably my narrative ability by having the tools to think VFX wise?
Our knowledge only goes so far. And so starting this podcast for us is just a way, an excuse, honestly, for me, just an excuse to say, hey, you're freaking amazing at whatever blank it is that you do, generally editing, because editing is what we like to nerd about. And I find myself on my YouTube channel just regurgitating the same information all the time. I'm stuck in my own mind, in my own narrow-sighted viewpoint on what editing is. And I just love talking with people like you, with people all over the world about editing and just nerding out together.
How did we end up here at this moment? We've talked about the philosophies of our podcast. We talked about what we want to be doing as this podcast, but how did we end up at this point today? Where did it begin for you? And how did that story bring you to this moment?
For me, I had never really did any filmmaking, anything when I was a small child, when I was a wee boy, when I was a wee lad. I got to film school and I was actually just trying it out. I didn't know if I wanted to be a graphic designer or a filmmaker because I liked art in high school. But I went out and shot my first short film and started putting it all together. And I was slaving over the pre-production process, and I was just going hard, shooting it, slaving away, sweating, tears, blood, all of those things. And it actually came down to a point where I got into the editing lab, and I never edited before. And I'm literally in film school, like pretending like I know what I'm doing, but I don't.
What software was it?
It was Avid.
Wait,
Media
Avid was your
Composer.
first ever tool?
I'd never used anything else.
Oh my
but Avid. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was crazy. So I got into the editing lab and just started putting it together, started having like tutorials up on one screen, my editing software on another screen, and just started putting together the script that I had written. I'd never written a script before. It was just like time slowed down and sped up at the exact same time. There was just some kind of magical moment where I was just losing track of time. The way that I was able to put together different clips and change the meaning and add this music track just to completely change the emotion of a scene. I was just like, it's insane, bro. This is nuts. I got to the editing lab at 5 p.m. and I look up at the clock and it was 5 a.m. And 12 hours had literally gone by between me stepping into that editing lab and exiting. And I just remembered, okay, what the heck? I could actually make this into a career. I was looking for that one thing. What is that thing that you can continue to do that gets you excited to wake up every morning, that puts a little bit of fire in your bones? And how can you affect change into the world with that thing? So that is what it was for me. And I just branded myself as an editor. I said, hey guys, let me edit your thing. Let me edit your music video. Let me edit your short film. And I did a lot of narrative up in the beginning of my career. I wanted to learn how to make a music video and I never knew what to do. And so I went and borrowed a friend's Red camera and just shot a music video for a friend of mine who was actually on the football team, and he was a rapper. So he was doing all his rap moves, and you get that low budget rap music video look. And that was my first experience into editing music videos. And then I went over to alumni and I just started asking, hey, can I edit your music video? Can I edit it for free? Can I edit it for cheap change? I just want to edit more things. I just want to practice this craft and get better at it. And from then on, I was branded as a music video editor. And I eventually worked my way up and through some DMs got into that small network of music video creators.
Oh, there's like a small network?
Everybody knows everybody. It's crazy. Okay. I mean, it's like anything else.
Yeah. There's like an editors network for YouTubers. Yeah. I didn't ever even consider there's like a small network of music video editors.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like there's like 20 of us. Like total.
20 videos, probably own the entire industry.
Own the entire industry, yeah. So it's nuts. And after editing for some of those big music video artists, I started doing commercials. I was been editing for Nike, for Google, really delving into that short form area. And the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden I had no work because all the big productions were shutting down. So all those big music videos, all of those things, they couldn't film anymore. So I was stuck in my room and I got a call from a friend who works for Social Media Examiner, actually. He said, Jordan, you need to freaking make a YouTube channel, bro. And I was like, dude, I know YouTube is like hard. Like you have to put in hours and hours of work before you see any results. You have to put in like 2-3 years of work before your channel starts taking off. Like that was
like not even now. Like it's a long amount of effort. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that had always deterred me from creating a YouTube channel and from getting into it and putting in all that effort. But the pandemic hit, and at that point, I was like, what else am I going to do? So I may as well go for it. Earlier that year, I had edited some dance videos for Justin Bieber. And so I started my first video. I was like, hey, maybe somebody would be interested in hearing from Justin Bieber's editor, right? So I said, hey, my name is Jordan. I'm Justin Bieber's editor. And that I put out like a 2-minute YouTube video, and that was the beginning of the YouTube channel.
And then it's just suddenly, it kind of kicked off a little bit. Like it's just the momentum started, because I remember seeing it on my perspective. Like I'm seeing that content, and I saw the momentum that it created straight away. A lot of YouTube editing online is about technical editing. So here's how to do this effect on After Effects. Here's how to do this transition in Premiere Pro. And then you kind of went, no, here's the psychology of a cut. Here is the reason why you would do this rhythm. Here's why you need to create this emotion. And suddenly that was kind of an epiphany moment, I think, for me, and I think a bunch of other creators as well. You stumbled upon a very unique place or a new niche or a new gap in the market on YouTube. And then you started talking about that. And then for me, that's also what inspired me and my channel. You shared details. I'm like, that is so clear, but I didn't notice it until you pointed it out.
Yeah.
And so for me, I value that so much. You went into the traditional space and you've now transitioned into the YouTube space, which there is like an unofficial competitiveness and differences towards it, where it's like YouTube content is looked at differently by traditional media. YouTubers and YouTube creators look at traditional media differently as well. For me, I've always kind of disagreed with that. It's like, we're making entertainment. We're making content for everyone to enjoy. Why is this kind of unspoken roughness with each other? Even with that, as you've been exploring into the YouTube web content industry, what has been some of the discoveries that you've had?
I could talk about this for hours, like absolute hours. And I think you're so ahead of the curve because YouTube is always looked down upon from the perspective of traditional media. And I was like very guilty of that. I was like, man, I'm never gonna be a YouTuber. YouTube is for chumps. Like, why? I want to make films. I want to make cinema. That was me.
That you're all right. It's like, yeah, I am an auteur. I am the next Quentin Tarantino. You want me to be a YouTuber? Piss off.
Exactly.
That is a common attitude. I'm stereotyping a little bit, but that is an attitude I've received a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And I am totally guilty of that. But I've had such a shift in my thought process, and I've just, that was my character flaw. And now I'm over here, a changed man, let me tell you. And Hayden has brought the light. So I appreciate that. I've honestly just decided to full send on YouTube, like completely. And that's why I love obsessing over your channel and talking with you about anything and everything YouTube, just because that's the direction that I'm wanting to head personally. And I think there's just so much freedom on YouTube that you can't get anywhere else.
The main job that I've been doing for the past couple of years has been working for Logan Paul.
Yep.
I've been editing his videos, but it's me and him. That's it. It's like he sends me footage, I do what I need to do, and I send it back to him, and you have a creative back and forth, and that's it. It's two people making the content. I would imagine for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're editing a video for like Justin Bieber, you probably have to edit for the producer, for the director, for the manager, for this person, and maybe even the lawyers. Yeah. And they've all got their own different ideas. And correct me if I'm wrong, like would it be safe to assume you've never spoken to Justin at all? Never.
I've never.
Yeah.
There's so many cooks.
There's so many cooks. And you have to balance all of them. What we're doing as YouTube is such big scale, but it's still oddly intimate. And I think that's one of the things that I've always valued the most. It's for me, I'm an introverted person. If I have 5 people telling me what to do, I will respond aggressively and negatively. It's like, I will do you know who I am? Just let me edit the bloody video. Like, I will tell them to piss off. Yeah. And that's why I don't think I could do traditional, probably. Yeah. I just like the intimacy. It's like, I want to be creative with one person and let's work it out together. And then for us, it then means that the content feels very real, very authentic. To an extent, it still feels like the creator edited the video themselves.
I just think of it as YouTube is the Wild West. It's people just going out, pioneering new land, going out into towns with no laws, doing whatever the frick they want. Whereas traditional media is, staying in the city, working in the factories.
That is true. But that doesn't mean that traditional media is bad or wrong. It's like there is reasons for that infrastructure. There's reasons for that to exist. Because I've only done YouTube my entire career, I've kind of got this Plato's cave kind of problem where this is all I know. I look into the cave and that's all I see. And I want to be able to look outside of the cave and actually see a whole side of the industry that I would never probably ever experience.
Same.
And
that's why we're here.
And that's why we're here. We've come full circle. Storytelling. There we go.
So wait, so tell me though, how you got here now.
The best way to start this is we were the generation before smartphones. We were the ones when we saw the technology starting to develop. Everyone's got a smartphone now and they can film whatever they want. We were the first people with phones that were heading towards that technology. And I had a flip phone that recorded like a 5 megapixel video. It was like the most pixelated video ever, but suddenly I could start capturing videos in my hand. So off I went. And I recorded me throwing a giant Dalek, which is a bad guy from a TV show called Doctor Who, and I threw it at a Tardis, which is like an object in the Doctor Who TV show.
I'm a big Whovian, so.
Oh, okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I thought it was so funny, so I showed it to a couple of my friends at school, and it spread across the entire school like wildfire, because the entire school loved Doctor Who. And that was actually the first viral video I ever made. That moment made me go, ooh, I like this. And so I started making more videos. I started making friends who had the exact same path, like the life path of like, suddenly there's a camera in front of them, they started making videos, we started working together. There was this whole amazing YouTube community back in the UK when YouTube was still developing. But of course, time progresses, we all kind of like, we all went our separate ways.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was an amazing UK YouTube community and we all started discovering filmmaking together. It was genuinely one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. And then I studied film at university. That's a topic we can talk about, going to film school rather than learning from experience. We can talk about that another time. But I used that time at university to also be continuing learning on YouTube as well. And because I saw value on YouTube. And then at my university, all of the rest of the students that were with me kept on saying that Vimeo is going to take over YouTube in a year. They did. I saw the potential in YouTube. They didn't, but that's because they wanted to be the short filmmakers, the long forms, the feature films, the commercials. They wanted to do that. And so that I've always empathized and understood that prejudice. And I've always been fine with that. For me, once I graduated, I went, okay, I need to get a job because I've got no money. I need to get something. So I got a job at a Facebook video company. At that time, during around, 2016, Facebook, video was all about copying each other's content, stealing each other's content, just downloading, putting it on our page, claiming it as our own and calling it a day. And that was my job. And morally and ethically, I was like, I don't like this. And so I held on to it because I needed the money. I held on to it because I needed the experience. But it got to a point when I told the boss to go fuck himself.
You really said it.
Yes.
You said those words.
I said that to him. And rightfully so, he fired me. And to be honest, I was like, yep, fair enough. Like, I do not blame him. But the thing is, this is the person, he is a high profile person. He is making big waves, but this is not the person you tell to go fuck himself. And so word went around the industry about the kid who told that guy to go fuck himself. And word spread enough to Logan Paul. And Logan was like, that's the kid I want. His manager contacted me, said, hey, we got some footage. We want to give you a test edit. I did the test edit. And Logan, he's like a jock kid, stereotypical jock. You know, he's amazing at sports, sprints for miles, just says dude and bro and what up and all that sort of stuff. He is the exact opposite of me, who is like a frail, introverted person who's sometimes afraid to exit my home. And like, we shouldn't mix. And so when I'm giving his footage, I'm not entertained. I think it's arrogant. I think it's egotistical. It's loud. It's obnoxious. This is awful for me. I need to make this entertaining for me. And so I made fun of him. I memed him, sent him the footage. And then 20 minutes later, he calls me up and says, Hayden, this is perfect. Where have you been all my life? And he pretty much said something that I remember very specifically, where it was like, the stars had aligned. I've maintained that philosophy the entire time, where it's like, he sends me footage that's not quite my style, and I don't have to make it entertaining for me. And we maintained that, and Logan's always loved that. That's where it all began. And I have been very loyal to Logan for like the past almost 7 years now, constantly working with him, sticking with him, because he has given me creative experiences and creative ideas and creative knowledge that I would never learn without rubbing shoulders with someone like Logan. He is one of the most like fascinating people I've ever worked with and probably will ever will in my entire life. And so like I've been sticking with him for all of this time. And I've learned so much because of that, like very much niched down, very tightly into being in the YouTube entertainment segment, like YouTube vlogs, YouTube comedy, YouTube documentaries, YouTube music videos, but in his style and who he is as a person. And now it's led me to where I am today, where I feel confident enough to talk about editing, talking psychology, talking about retention. YouTubers love to talk about retention, emotion, storytelling, all of that through my experiences with Logan. You look at my editing when I started with Logan, terrible. I was very average, like very, very average. But because I focused and stuck with one person for all of these years, I've now got what I feel like is the abilities that I have today. If I can have editors younger than me start being better than me, then our job is done, I would say. Because we're talking about editing. I want people to be better than me very soon.
Absolutely.
I just want to retire early, basically. But I'm responsible to having you keep editing content. But that experience and sticking with someone for that long has been the main reason why I can do and feel confident in doing what I am today.
Yeah, I think it's all about the reps you get in. There was an editing teacher that told me this story where there was this kid that worked in a box factory, and his dad was in charge of the box factory. And so he put his kid to work, and he started making boxes, and he showed it to his dad. He worked really, really hard on this box. And his dad was like, you know what? I really appreciate that you made this box, but it's terrible because of this, and this reason. And so he said, okay, here's some more materials, go make another box. Mm-hmm. And the kid, made another box, and then he gave it to his dad. And he worked probably 3 times as hard on this box. Mm-hmm. And his dad was like, it's an amazing box, but there's like, it's better. Just do it again. Gave him some more materials. And this kid just kept making boxes and kept making boxes. He made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boxes. And then when he took a box to his dad, after doing this for hours and hours and weeks and months and maybe even years, and he gave it to his dad, and his dad was like, this is a perfect box. You've made an incredible box, and I'm so proud of you. Yeah. And that moment where he can put in those reps and he actually mastered the craft of creating boxes. You just need reps.
You need the reps.
You just need the reps.
In the same way as you would be building muscle in a gym. Just put in those reps, put in those sprints, and suddenly you're going to end up being very fit, like creatively. Bottom line is because he put in the reps. He put in the effort and probably doing the same thing over and over again until it became instinctual. I've had this experiences recently where maybe editing problem that I had 2 years ago probably would take me like a day or 2 to figure it out. But now I do it without even thinking about it. Has there been a lesson for you in that case where there was a huge problem for you ages ago, and now it's just like a blink of an eye and it's done.
Absolutely. I think the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is just sound syncing for music videos.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing about music videos generally in traditional media is they have no audio to them. So you're reading lips to sync up to the song.
Oh, wow.
And so I remember the first time I sound synced music videos, it took me like 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
It took me forever. And now I can read lips super well. It's like a weird skill that I have now. I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And then I just,
so does that
just
mean
put
like,
it together in half an hour.
Does that mean you can like read lips in like restaurants like across the room and like figure out two
No,
two
because
couples
you have
like,
to be singing.
Oh, they have to be singing.
They have to be singing.
Yeah,
if
of
it's
course.
talking, I can't read it.
Oh yeah, of course, that's fine. It's like, does that mean also like having an understanding of the lyrics as well? Like, let's just say it's a Justin Bieber song. Are you looking for him to start saying yummy and then you get that sync?
Yeah, usually I do start off with the first word, but there's no lyrics usually because usually the songs are unreleased. So if you want to get the lyrics, usually you'll Google it, it'll be released, and then you'll get the lyrics. But usually they're unreleased songs, so there's no lyrics written down.
That's actually pretty cool to think about. Technically, you get the songs before millions of other people. You have the track, you have it on your computer. That's one of my favorite things is over the course of my career, it's been over 8 billion views, which is like more than the planet. But of course, there's repeated viewers. But I've always loved the idea that.
Okay, don't brush over that. Oh my gosh, it's more than the planet.
It's more than the planet,
but whatever.
But again, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, that came out really arrogantly. You're probably right. Basically, calling me out on that.
It was just funny. It was funny because you just like that's your reality though. It was just funny.
That is the nature of YouTube. It is like that amount of scale.
Yeah.
And it is odd. You're right. Like that is odd that I think about that very casually now. But I think with that, I love the fact that as the editor, you're the first person. Not the person who films it. I'm the one who's like made the edited video. And I was the first person of there's billions of people who saw that video. And I'm probably even more exciting for you as a music video editor. Like you get the track, and that's like an added bonus. You're the first person who's seen the music video, and you're also one of the first, probably couple hundred people to actually listen to that track as well.
Yeah,
I envy that.
It's kind of fun. The thing is, you can't share it with anybody.
Yeah,
which is
of course.
The worst part. You can't share it because
then you'll be blacklisted from the entire industry.
Exactly. So it's a blessing and a curse. So tell me, what is the biggest editing lesson that you've ever encountered?
The biggest editing lesson is due to the nature of me being on YouTube. I have to keep in mind the habits of the viewer where they click on our video, and the way that YouTube is designed, to a degree, they're looking for the first reason to click off. And that's a scary thought and probably an anxiety-inducing thought. And so how can I ensure that people don't click off on our videos? How can I ensure that people will watch throughout the end? And to a degree, YouTube also has to have a high pace. Fast, aggressive pacing. You start the video and the video needs to end before you even realize it's begun. And what that means is if you're wanting to be, let's just say, a traditional filmmaker in short film, you kind of have permission to kind of slow down some sequences, maybe have a couple of scenes that were probably really important to you as a director or a filmmaker that you want your audiences to see. But if that doesn't give 100% energy on YouTube, people will click off. And so one of the biggest lessons for me is there might be a moment that I love. There might be some really great joke. There might be a fascinating moment that I want people to see. But if it doesn't do a good enough job in maintaining pacing and momentum in a video, it has to be cut. And the phrase, it's one of the most classic phrases in all of film editing media, murder your darlings, which is on the board right now.
This was supposed to be like a little Easter egg, but it's the biggest lesson in editing for Hayden-Hillier Smith.
Yes.
For you.
For me,
wow.
That is the hardest part. And so for me now, when I first had to start learning that discipline, it hurts. It sucks. Imagine Logan had spent like 3 hours getting this one shot, or spent 30 takes getting this one joke because it was like a very like specific performance. And I watched all those takes and went, they suck. They gotta go. It doesn't matter if Logan wants it in. The audience won't find it funny, so it's gonna have to go. It's like those types of moments suck. And for me also, you got to allow yourself to grieve a little bit. Like, imagine you put a lot of effort into something, but if it doesn't work, you're going to have to grieve. It's going to have to suck. It hurts a lot. And you're going to have to cut it and it's gone. But then the best part is that once you've made the cut and you watch it back, you went, yeah, that should have been gone. Yeah, that sucked. That shouldn't have been in there. So it's like you go through this hilarious emotional experience so quickly, from grieving to absolute sadness to, yeah, that was a bit shit, wasn't it? It's so quickly. Once you get it, once you see it. There was something that I found out with Logan a lot, where we would discuss those types of cuts a lot. We would argue about those cuts a lot. And then I just did the cut and sent it to him and he went, yeah, you're right. And I discovered sometimes it's a lot more easy to just make the cut than to us discuss it for 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And I found that out a lot.
That's a hot tip.
That's what I mean. Murder Your Darlings. That is always the biggest lesson for me. Pacing, Murder Your Darlings.
Do you find it hard to murder your darlings yourself? I think one of the biggest benefits of having too many cooks in the kitchen is in traditional media is there's people that will call that out for me. Like, I don't have to make that decision. I can put everything in and then a director or producer will be like, okay, yeah, we have to cut it, or let's see it that way. And like you said, trying it both ways, keeping one version with it in, one version with it out, and seeing, okay, which one flows better, which one plays better.
I would like to say I think I've gotten a very good discipline in Murder My Darlings, but I'm lying. It's like when it's my content, I need a fresh perspective myself, because I need to know what I value the most and what people would value the best. What is the best value for them and what is the most value for me is sometimes not the same mix. And so I need that fresh perspective. I have my partner in crime, Ashley, and I like to have her watch my videos. And in the moment she starts looking away, I have something need to cut. She's also very brutal and honest, which is what I like and value. And she will tell me, this didn't work, this joke didn't work, your performance was crap here. And so I value the outside opinions. Those are very important to have.
That is so good. That is so good. I need to apply that, because there's lots of times with my YouTube videos that I'm like, I freaking love this. Send it.
Yeah.
And I think having that second perspective is so important. And that's one thing that film school really taught me.
Yeah.
Because I personally did go through film school as well. And having people just roast your stuff is one of the best things you can do.
It comes back to what I was saying earlier, how everyone has a different perspective on everything. And so they will see something that you were probably totally blind to. And they will point it out and you will go, oh my God, that's so obvious. And so you need that, especially when you're making your own content, you need that perspective. You need that feedback. Every edit, well, no matter what you do, has to have feedback from at least one other person, just so they can give a different perspective than you. Because if you're in your own mind, that's your world. And if you only make it for your world, that might not be universal to everyone else. And so you need someone else to kind of give an idea of what the outside world would interpret the content that you make. I would love to ask you the same question. Like, what has been the biggest, hardest, but probably most influential lesson that you have had in your editing career?
There's this class, probably my favorite class in film school, is called aesthetics. And the professor would talk about films and short films, any sort of media, in a almost like a grading scale, where the film has 100% when it starts off. You're making a film, it's 100. And every single thing, whether it be a sound wave, a light wave, a choice, a frame, contributes to that 100.
Ooh.
So every single choice that you make will either keep it at 100 or take a point off.
Ooh.
Okay. So every single choice, more so every frame, is important and needs to have a reason to be there. If there's a frame where if someone asks you, why is that there? Just asking the question why is so important. And if someone says, why is that there? And you don't have an answer,
either cut it or make it better.
Yeah. Exactly. Always be looking at every single frame of your video, every single frame of your film, and see, does this contribute to the story, to the emotion, to whatever we're trying to tell, or does it take away?
I want to ask you a question, and the reason why is because you mentioned it to me off camera, and I want to call you out on this one.
Hit me.
What was the last movie you watched?
Okay. So I haven't watched movies, period. And I don't even remember. I think the last movie I watched was The Pirates of the Caribbean on the plane.
Pirates of the Caribbean on the plane. Do you remember what month was that? Do you even remember?
It was last month.
Oh, last month. But your last movie you watched was on a plane.
It was on a plane. And then the other two movies I watched on the plane were Horton Hears a Who and Inside Out. And that's because my fiance Ashley loves kids movies. She loves animated kids movies. And so that's pretty much all I watch now.
Which three of those movies stuck with you the most?
Honestly, Inside Out.
Yeah.
Literally the last 30 minutes, I was bawling. Like I was
On the
uncontrollably crying on the plane, and I didn't even see like the last 15 minutes because I was just like this. My head was in my shirt on the plane because it was so embarrassing. I don't know why. I was just crying so much.
Men should be able to cry.
They should be able to.
It.
They should be able to. But Ashley and I were both just messed up next to each other watching Inside Out. And it was at the moment when Bing Bong sacrificed himself.
Oh no!
So Joy could get to the top and then get back to the main area.
I love the fact you mentioned Inside Out. Again, that moment is so important because I think sacrifice is part of the journey. That's why it's very important. That's why it's such a common thing in storytelling. You know, like someone has to make the sacrifice because it then shows the journey of the pain you have to get through to get to the destination.
Exactly.
But it's a shame that sacrifice is part of that. Like someone has to die every time to have a justifiable storytelling journey, but it's fine. But that, for me, broke me as well. The reason why I love the fact that you mentioned that is I have never cried in a movie ever before. I've been entertained, I've like laughed during comedy movies or whatnot. But that movie, and especially that moment as well, which is why I love the fact you mentioned it, activated something. And I remember being in the cinema crying for the first time. I'm watching it and I'm feeling really, really sad. And suddenly my face starts tickling. I'm like, what is this? What is this? It was like the first time a tear had come out while watching a movie. And I was like, and then since then the floodgates have been opened. And
That's funny how that works, right?
Yeah, it's exactly how that's what I mean by something's activated. And so I go into movies with the expectation I'm going to cry now. And I cannot stop it now. But I very proudly cry now. It's like, you did it, movie. Well done, you made me cry.
Yeah, and the irony is that it's a movie about emotions.
It's a movie about emotions. Exactly. So
I love your Nemo breakdown.
Yes.
So freaking good.
That's one of my favorite films ever.
Me too.
Yeah, it's another one.
That's like top 10 films.
Yes, absolutely. I think for me, it's such a condensed, well-made story. Every line of dialogue contributes towards something. A lot of things in Act 1 contribute towards Act 3. For me, I love the storytelling philosophy of a want and a need and a flaw. And I think in all of those contributing towards the story and contributing towards what each of those 3 points of a character are challenged and how they change over the course of a story, it's done perfectly. And Andrew Stanton, the director, he did a TED Talk, which again I included in the video, he did the bottom line rule: every story needs to make you care. And every time I watch that Finding Nemo movie, and I've watched it probably more than 15 times in my life, I care so much every time. I think more so every time I do watch it. I think even with age, when you grow up, you have new experiences, you know, like I thought about being a dad now, and suddenly I'm now thinking, I don't want to be an overprotective dad. I now look at Marlin as more so as a bad father now. I remember when I was younger, empathized with Nemo so much more because I was wanting a kid, wanting to be free. There is a storytelling character for everyone.
Yes.
That's
every
what it
character
is.
So relatable.
Every character is so relatable. Every character has their own wants, needs, and flaws that they explore and overcome. Oh man, I love that movie so much. We could go in. We could talk about this for an hour, or for 2 hours. But I think we need to probably keep this in mind.
I love that
for
movie
maybe
so
another
much.
time.
Nemo is such a bop.
That's one of our favorite movies. But what is genuinely your favorite movie ever?
My favorite movie ever, and I've only seen it once. I'm afraid to watch it again because I don't want it to not be my favorite movie, but The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
It's just, I was so emotionally moved, and I thought about that movie for like a couple weeks after watching it. If there's a movie that can make me think about it for 2 weeks after I've watched it, it's a freaking good movie.
One things with that is one of my favorite filmmaking philosophies. Do you actually remember specifically what happened in the movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you do?
I mean, generally. Some of the details I don't.
Some of the details you're on. But you do remember how the film made you feel. Mm-hmm. And that's what stuck with you. Mm-hmm. The best stories, the best content, the best films are ones that generate a memory with you. And then that's feeling, that emotion, that memory is what sticks with you for such a long time. And Shawshank Redemption does that so well. The way that film feels, the way that film tells its story, the way it invests in its characters, you feel every moment, and you feel their dread, you feel their joy, you feel their hopelessness, and you feel the journeys and changes that they have. And you need, as a filmmaker, to be able to achieve that emotional core of generating a memory for your audience. And that's when you know you've made a good film. And Shawshank Redemption, again, has stuck with me for years. That is a fond memory for me, but I don't remember the film. But I do remember how it made me feel.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a lovely moment to probably end it, actually.
Sweet.
We're going to have more episodes of these, us nerding about filming, editing, storytelling, and everything in between, and bringing on guests to help us learn more.
I'm so excited to embark on this journey, Hayden.
This is going to be brilliant.
Dude,
Great.
Let's
Thank
do
you
it.
so much
Let's do it again.